agenda, approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, Nathan Brown from Greenback. I don't see Nathan. With that, we'll ask Miss Bailey Bridges if she's here. She is.
Good evening. I'm Bailey Bridges from Loudon High School. Many exciting things have happened over the past 2 months since I last spoke. Athletic teams have represented us exceptionally well. Redskins have dominated the baseball field since the start of the season in February. Right now, the baseball record is 5-1 in the district and 11-3 overall. After tonight, whenever we beat LC, it will be 12-3, just in case y'all wanted to know. So I'm going to give you a date. So, although baseball, tennis, boys soccer, track and field have started since we last met, our boys basketball team sadly did lose to Brainerd. Our students have also been performing well artistically. On April 1st, we had our annual talent show where teachers and students got up and showed everybody their hidden talents. Also, we hosted our annual countywide Fine Arts Festival at the high school. And students and teachers also have been doing extraordinary things in the classroom. Culinary Arts has officially started with Culinary 3, their luncheons for teachers, anybody that wants to participate and come have good food for $5. Also, Redskins have been working diligently over the past few weeks to prepare for end-of-course exams, which start on the 16th of this month. And they are still working hard to finish off the school year strong. Redskins will be honoring the top 10% of each class in our annual academic celebration this month on the 16th at 6 p.m. We would like to invite all of you to come and celebrate each class, the people that have worked diligently over the whole year to earn this right. We would also like to mention that our senior night is on the 25th this month, and on behalf of the class of 2019, we would like to invite anybody to come help us celebrate our seniors. It's a tough 4 years that you go through, and they deserve the praise. On a side note, we have had several interesting things that have happened over the past 2 months. In February, we had our Let It Snow Winter Formal, a science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM assembly for all students, and our Health Occupation Students of America, also known as hosted our annual blow drop. In March, we had our midterms, our spring break, and Reggie Dabbs came and spoke to the students and hosted professional development training for all the teachers. So far this month, we've hosted our Tennessee Promise meeting for seniors. Seniors have received their cap and gown, and we hosted the Special Olympics just this week. Now let's talk a little bit more about some important dates that are coming up for the rest of the school year. On April 13th, we will be having our prom at Rothschild. On April 17th, we will be having a student and faculty basketball game to raise funds for HOSA. On April 19th through the 22nd, we will be having our Easter break, thank Jesus. And on the 25th, we will be hosting our senior night. On a side note, I would like to congratulate the 2018 yearbook staff and Ms. Clay. We were recognized for a national level of honorable mention in the Balfour, and I know this will sound weird, yearbook of 2019. So that's a very high honor to be recognized nationally all across the globe. Overall, students and teachers have been working diligently despite spring break being out around summer break being right around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bridges. At this time, we will recognize any visitors for anything that's on the agenda. It's my intention to let you talk as long as you can, as long as you're reasonable. Don't talk about any issues that'll get us into any legal trouble. But the subject does have to be on the agenda. Yes, come on.
I want to take the video.
I'm going to be speaking about the Jennifer Rossi request, item number 5 on our agenda. I hope everybody can hear. I'm Pandora Breland. I'm a Loudon County resident. And I just want to talk a little bit about volunteerism and how important it is, and how it's handled differently from other types of jobs. I'm gonna use as an example, my 82-year-old sister-in-law, who was the head volunteer in charge of running the nursery at her church. Her legions of clients started screaming the minute they were pried off their poor, weary mother's shoulders. They all seemed to arrive there with smelly diapers. I thought most of them were certainly starving to death because she had to start warming these bottles up right away. And her reward would be, she would give them a bottle, they'd burp, they'd maybe throw up, and then that would be followed by a whole round of disastrous diaper changing. I mean, these diapers were in enormous numbers. I was never a mother. I've never seen anything so frightening in my life. And again, this was her gig for every Sunday for 50 plus years. So at the end of that, I thought certainly if doing all this Herculean work for this church of hers, they would at least say, hey, Martha June, how about a burial plot? We'll give you one for free. It's a $1,500 value. No, that's not what they did. They said, hey, Martha June, thanks for all your hard work. We've got a plaque and some roses for you. And she said, it was my pleasure to serve. So before you here tonight will come a woman who I understand is a very hard-working volunteer, a mother from Loudon County with 3 children, and she would like to have her children enrolled in our county schools. She's a volunteer trainer at Loudon High School. Come to think of it, when I was writing it, it dawned on me, her high school clientele are probably very similar to what my sister-in-law was dealing with, okay? They were smelly, they were complaining, probably hungry. I think I was hungry the whole time I was in high school. Hopefully, after she gives them something to eat, when they belch, she probably ducks. This is not an easy job, and I know from talking to our director, Vance, that this woman works hard at it. Unfortunately, as a taxpayer in Loudon County, as much as the Loudon High School athletic staff and this board and other people in Loudon County appreciate volunteers like that, many of you probably are volunteers who work hard, it's not something that we can accommodate because a child in our school costs Loudon taxpayers roughly $4,500 a head. Is that a good number? So we're talking about 3 children, $4,500 a head for who knows how long. I think this woman's a young woman, so she probably has young children. So yes, there is a way for her to have her children be educated in Loudon County schools. It's the same answer it always is. If you are seriously interested in the Loudon County school education, you need to move to Loudon County. Now, that's all I can say about that. I mean, all I can say is the world operates because of hardworking volunteers. But the reward that we can offer volunteers is never enough to pay them for what they deserve. And although I'm sure we would like to do that, it's just economically not possible. Just like it was at my sister-in-law's church. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, on to number 4 on the agenda, the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, Pat, I didn't see you over there.
That's okay, I'm on the sidelines. My name is Pat Hunter. I have this thing sticking in my face. And I would like to bring up a couple of concerns. I, like Ms. Freeland, am concerned about the request number 5, and it is an out-of-county resident. And, you know, the thing is, the policy states that we don't accept out-of-county students. It was my understanding that the policy committee was going to look at this issue, and really, Dr. Oven and Mr. Vance haven't come back with a recommendation, but I was hoping that this would be addressed, and until it's addressed, I'm sorry, but if I'm looking and other taxpayers are looking at a tax increase of anywhere from 13 cents to 30 cents this year or next year, I mean next fiscal year or the year after, it's not fair to taxpayers for us to bear the burden of educating children that are not from our county. I gladly do it for the children in our county, but unless Ms. Rossi lives here, I think that the answer should be no. The other concern that I have is about the legal. You're going to consider looking at a budget amendment on page 15 to increase legal by $100,000. It started off at $75,000, and within a few days, it was changed to $100,000. I guess I'm gonna get on my soapbox about legal. I've done some research, went back to actual audit numbers, back all the way to 2000, when Mr. Headley was there, and through Mr. Honeycutt's tenure of 3 years, in 2008 through 2008-9 through 2011, and all the way to 2019. Now, 2018, we just got the audit back, but in 8 years, from 2003 to 2010, the legal was $121,427. Now, those are actual numbers. From 2011, when Mr. Vance became the school director, through 2019, assuming you approve the $100,000, we're looking at $240,254. That is an alarming amount. And I wonder, well, what did they do differently than the current director? And I'm not gonna go back and look at all the various litigation. I did track to some degree all the way back to 2005. But since 2011, this county has been involved, or the school board specifically, has been involved in too much litigation. And this needs to be stopped. I mean, it needs to be changed. I sent an email to Chairman Simon, and I was concerned because there was a notice in the newspaper, and I sent a copy of the notice. It ran in the March 27th News Herald, and it specifically said that there would be a board meeting on April the 11th, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the courthouse annex, and on the agenda was going to be the director of schools contract will be considered. And my email to the chairman, if I can just paraphrase it, I wanted to know why it wasn't on the agenda as it has been since I've been coming to the school board meetings. I thought it was a rather simple question and concern, but what I didn't expect to get was an email from a lawyer, and the lawyer doesn't work for free. He's part of these legal bills that we're getting. What I didn't expect was an unprofessional, unsolicited, smart aleck comment about the Truett lawsuit. Now, there would have been no Truett lawsuit if there had been a notice put in the newspaper. That is the responsibility of the director of schools and the school board chairman. That is not my fault. That is not Mr. Truett's fault. You have a policy that states that meetings are to be noticed. I imagine that we will get a bill with that unsolicited email from Mr. McCarty, but I do not appreciate it because I am a taxpayer. I have been for 35 years, and I don't like paying legal fees when I didn't solicit a remark from him, an email from him, and I don't appreciate it. I think you, Chairman Simon, should have answered my email. If we get to the point where everything is going to the lawyer, we have big issues that need to be addressed. And good, hard, hard-earned money that I make, my husband makes, the taxpayers of this county make, I want it used wisely. I want it used on the children and their education. That's important to me, and it's important to a lot of other people. And we have to get off this cycle, because if all these issues keep bringing in the lawyers, all this hard-earned money is going to go to legal when it should be going to the children. So those are my concerns. And like I said, I didn't expect anything like that. Like I said, I thought Mr. McCarty was just unprofessional, and I don't appreciate it. Thanks.
Ms. Hunter, do you care to forward that to all the board members?
I will.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter.
I'm Annette Brown. So are you guys not wanting to let Jen's kids come? Is that the Rossi, Jennifer Rossi? Are you not, are they trying to, or she want her kids to come to Loudon?
Yes, she's requesting.
Okay, I get what you're saying about children, but if you have been around Jen, she is unreal. She probably spends as much time with our student athletes as she does, as the teachers do. My problem with this is how many teachers or administration do we have that live outside the county, that their kids come to Loudon schools? That's what I worry about, because Jennifer is a huge asset to, my son plays football. She's amazing with football. If y'all have watched basketball games, she was always there. She's there at everything. And I don't think that this is too much to ask if we have teachers, good teachers who are here and they're out of county, and yet their children are allowed it. That's all I gotta say about that.
Can I ask a question before I say something?
Absolutely.
You said, discussion on the agenda. Can I ask a question about the minutes attached or not?
Yeah, they're on the agenda. You can-
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Lynn Greer, I'm a taxpayer in the county. So I was going over the minutes, and I think the most important thing that was said at the workshop was said by Sheriff Guider. And I noticed that his name is nowhere in those minutes.
That was from the March 22nd board special call. We had-
Oh, I've just scratched all the way through all of them, hadn't I? Okay, didn't we get a copy of those minutes with the big stack at the workshop too?
We did, there was just an update in this one that I wanted the board to be able to see.
My bad. I'll go sit down now. Sorry.
You're fine.
See, if y'all just let me sit and ask for my chair at the same time, walking back and forth.
Anyone else like to speak? With that, we will go on to item 4, the consent agenda. Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda as was presented last week at the workshop.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No. He wasn't here. I wasn't here. He's all about it.
With that, I guess we better do a roll call.
Ms. Bridges?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Summers?
Aye.
Mr. Moffett? Mr. Riding?
No.
Mr. Cusick?
Aye.
Motion carried. Number 5, the Jennifer Rossi request. Mr. Director.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I recommend that we approve allowing Ms. Rossi's children to attend Loudon County schools based on last week's school board workshop discussion.
I just wanted to, I guess we need to make a motion before we do the discussion, don't we?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
We do have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Okay, the floor is open.
And I'll tell you my reasons for voting for this. First of all, I know Jen personally. She got my son broke back twice, so, but anyway, she does what, she's not a volunteer. She works for TOC, and she's assigned to Loudon Schools. She is there every day, usually in afternoons from 3 to 6 or 7, whenever, you know, she was in Special Olympics, yeah. So, this board has, in the past, allowed folks that are out of county, kids that work for the county, to bring their kids to school. And to answer yours, Annette, there's actually a TCA code that dictates to us that if a teacher lives out of county, they can bring their kids to the county they work in. So that's why that they do that. So,
But it doesn't work for part-time people, unfortunately.
Right.
And this is just awful.
Well,
The
I
awful
mean-
part
Well,
of it.
Jennifer is not part-time. If there is something going on, she is there.
Kenny, I know what you're
Very
saying.
good.
It's not, she may be
Everything.
here in earnest
For
full-time,
years.
but she's assigned.
For years.
She doesn't get that benefit from the TCA, is all
No.
I'm saying. Which is awful.
Well, and just to clarify, she is not a school employee. I don't know if that, you know,
Yeah.
that's where the TCA comes in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, school board members, Mr. Newman and I have talked about this several different times over the past year and a half. I think Ms. Rossi's evaluated that to us. Scotty and I completely agree on this. You know, we've talked at great length, but like as Ben mentioned, she is a member of TOC, not Loudon County Schools. So she understands that this is a contentious vote, and would just appreciate any kind of thought that you guys may provide.
So I've got a question. So she works for a company that provides services to Loudon County, is that how that works?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kim, you were the one at the committee meeting that, where we were discussing the general policy that seemed to take strong opposition to it. Can you speak to that a little bit this evening?
Well, I think when I know, she doesn't know, well, maybe she does. I have her kid at my school, and I don't want to give her up, to be quite honest, because I love her to death. She's a great kid, so I don't want to give her up. But I know, and I kind of, and with Ms. Hunter and with Pandora, you know, and I don't know her, I just know her kid. But I do know that I've heard several people say that they don't agree with kids coming in here from out of county. Like I said, it has nothing to do with not liking her, it's just what I've heard. And I know that it puts a burden on taxpayers, and that makes people unhappy. And so that's kind of what we had talked about before. We talked about the price, and I think Pat's probably closer, paying more around $4,500, if I remember, $4,000, that it places on the taxpayers. I know that the state gives money, and we put that towards it, but the other part has to come out of the taxpayers' property tax and what we put in. So that's kind of what we had discussed at our meeting previously when we discussed the out-of-county students.
And there was debate back and forth on that, some arguing that if it didn't require an extra teacher and it didn't require an extra classroom, that it really did not cost that much to add a student or two students. It depends on the circumstances and where they were. But there was enough objection that evening we were discussing this that we simply did not call another meeting. It didn't look like it was going to go anywhere, but I'd be happy to reactivate that committee and discuss it again in committee and see if we can come up with a plan. But short of that, our policy says what it says, and Pandora's right that we've got a policy that says no out-of-county students.
And I think one of the things that we discussed, and like Dr. Evans said, I mean, we haven't gotten to that point, but we discussed about tuition prices. And we did discuss that. We never came to an agreement on it, but that was put up for discussion in reference to what it would take. And as taxpayers have kind of told me, their thoughts was that, you know, if it takes $4,500 local dollars to put a kid in school, then that's what they want it to take for someone to bring them from out of county. So I know we had that discussion. We never came to an agreement on a tuition price, but that did come up also in that discussion.
And this is an item that's been kicked down the road. We get kicked down the road every year. We always say we're gonna do something about it, and we never do anything about it.
It's very, very, one of the most difficult, everybody on the board that's dealt with this issue knows how difficult it is.
But I mean, like I said,
It's not the worst.
we're elected to represent our taxpayers, not rural counties. I mean, much as I'd like for her to come in there,
No,
and I'll vote for her to come, but, you know, I'm just saying.
I'm gonna offer a substitute motion that we table this item, reconvene the committee, and see if we can come up with some solution in the committee for not just this particular situation, but is there a way we can come back and address the Loudon County student issue that will satisfy the committee?
Dr. Evan, your committee hasn't been null and void.
No, it's just send it
You're
back.
the,
I'm just suggesting we give it to that committee to deal with once again.
oh, we have a motion in a second on the floor. I mean, if somebody wants to remove their
I'll
motion.
A motion to table supersedes. A motion to table supersedes.
Okay, you're right. I missed it.
Replaces.
Do you have a second? We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Second. We have a motion and a second.
Does everybody have to pay that brings their kid in?
If we vote the policy, then we do.
That means everybody.
No, there would
Correct,
be,
that's kind of what I thought.
We have a motion and a second. And Ms. Kayla, would you read that, please?
This is a motion to table now, correct?
That's what I wanted.
This is where Dr. Evan made a motion to table the request and come back together as a policy committee and look at this matter again.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
I'm gonna say no, but, if we're gonna do this, we need to set a date. and get it done. You know, I think that's why we keep getting ourselves in troubles, that we put a lot of things off.
It's my fault that we didn't continue, and it just didn't look like it was gonna work last time.
I understand.
That's the question, even if it was voted on tonight to allow them to enroll, she still wouldn't be able to enroll until following fall, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some time.
There's for fall, yes. I believe that's correct, isn't it? Yeah.
I was making sure.
Ms. Kayla, you do a roll call on that. I'm pretty sure we just got one, but I want to make sure.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
No.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Riding?
Yes.
Mr. Cusick?
Yes.
Ms. Bridges?
Yes.
Motion carried. Can we set a date? I like Scotty's idea there. Are we prepared to set it? I know we really don't have to do that here, but I'd like to do that 'cause it's a great idea.
Sure.
Robbie, you okay for that?
Who's all on that committee?
Vice Chair, the kid was on it, there was.
Oh, is that?
Zach.
Zach, you were-
Yeah,
Zach, you were on the committee.
Yep.
Was there a
He is the full person.
any particular evening or late afternoon that's better than others for you? How soon can you be here in the afternoon?
I can get here around 4:30.
4:30? Can you
Mondays
make
and
it
Tuesdays
4:30?
are not good for me.
Possibly, just depends what day it is.
Okay.
Do you need 5? I mean,
No, it just depends on the activities I have in the afternoon, if I have a kids game.
Oh, gotcha, I'm sorry.
Concert or something.
You want to schedule one for early in May when we do our workshop, just do it earlier in the afternoon, say at 4:30. We do a 6 o'clock workshop. Any conflicts with that, Karen?
That works.
All right,
That'd be
let's
May
set it for that.
Second.
And we can post this, plenty of time to post that one as well.
thank you, Dr. All right, number 6, TSB policy recommendations, Mr. Jordan.
Mr. Chairman, board members recommend we approve the policies as was presented last week's workshop.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on these policies? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Number 7, North Middle Fine Arts building pay application for $13,300.
Mr. Chairman, board members, as discussed last week at the workshop, I recommend that we accept this pay application. This will include pay application for the architects, and then we'll have one more pay application in regard to the retainage fees for Evans Haley Construction.
Make a motion, pay the bill.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Did the project, I'm sorry, did the project come in under budget this
think it was right at the amount that we allotted.
Any more discussion? Yeah, they were pretty, it was almost all of it, wasn't it, I think?
But,
Any more discussion? Okay. No. You good? Yeah, you sure? Let's roll call that one, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Simon?
Aye.
Mr. Moffett? Mr. Riding?
Yes.
Mr. Cusick?
Yes.
Ms. Bridges? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Motion carried. Number 8, budget amendments, Mr. Director?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I recommend we approve budget amendments as was presented last week at workshop.
We have a,
Can we separate those?
I don't see one. You mean by 142, one? Was it 141, 142? I don't have that packet.
I don't have a package either, but
What,
Which one would you like to separate?
is it one you want to pull out?
Yeah, I like separate the legal.
Just legal fees.
Yeah.
Why don't we wait on that, because there was a proposal that the attorneys gave us, or gave to me anyway, that I was gonna put on the agenda for next meeting, that changed the way we paid to a flat amount, and it was being calculated over what the average was of the last 5 years, not counting this year, because this was kind of a little and that rather than the amount that we paid going up and down as the events took place, that by averaging the last 5 years, it became a specific amount each month, which was easier for us to budget, and they would not go over or under that. We would just, that flat rate, whatever it was gonna be on that average, and we would pay them every month for the 12 months.
did they charge for this meeting? You were with me? Sure.
So that took place?
Yeah.
That was a letter, it was a conversation we
okay.
had at one of the regular meetings, thank you, though. And Henry McCarty gave that to me after our conversation. I was gonna put it on the agenda for our next workshop.
Well, is that,
Well, I think if we're gonna do that, we might as well do like we do anything else, and that's kind of look at some of these other attorneys that are, that have law firms and see if they can come in and, give us a better quote, get our more money. You know, I know that school law is a lot different than other laws, but, you know, I think that if you can get a competent attorney that will look into anything that they're representing or making a suggestion on, that's fine. I mean, that's what I would say.
Open it up for bid.
That's,
Mr. Chairman and board members, I think we need at least 60,000, maybe 75,000 to break even to pay our bills to date. So you guys can separate these out if you choose, but we're gonna have to pay up to
For our
this
current
point
bills,
for our
attorney
current
bills, yes.
And the motion was for home, which is 100,000.
We'll leave it there for now then, or what do you want to do?
Well,
I think the invoices that we received thus far, one was for 30-something thousand from John Owen's firm, one was for 11,000 and change, and I can't remember exactly what the other one was.
6187.50.
You can tell me what all. Those are the invoices that we would be paying out of this budget amendment.
And could the board members speak up,
I mean,
please?
we can change
I'm not
it,
here.
I'm sorry.
we can change it if we like, but we
So
still
basically,
owe those
the
bills
question,
no
the
matter
question
what.
that I had was, out of the invoices that I have seen thus far, out of those three, if this was what that total was that the director was asking for right now, and Ms. Hunter confirmed that for us, so.
We can change the budget, but we can't change the bills. I mean, we have to pay them.
well, which fund is that out of?
I think that Chad has taken that out of teacher line and teacher assistant line, 161, 163.
Out of 141?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so I don't know how we would do that. I mean, we either vote to accept 141 as total, or what are you suggesting, Scotty?
I just want to vote on it separately. Instead of put them all together and loop them in there, so we can go through each one of them, we're voting on. I mean, I'm not for paying it, but I mean, that's, I have my other reasons why, but I mean, I'm just gonna vote.
Okay, well, can we break this down some items so that we can vote on everything separately?
You wanna break on every single budget amendment separately?
No, let's vote on that one first.
140 won't happen.
Let's vote on that one first and then lump the others together.
141 without, is that what you're suggesting?
Without the attorney fee,
About the attorney.
Are we gonna, you gonna reduce the number? You don't know what it all, but I mean, you want to reduce the number from 100 down to enough to pay Mr. Brown was talking about?
We could entertain a motion to do that, sure, but right now, what he's asking for is 141 with the 100. So we can do this any way you guys wanna do it. Scotty just suggested 141 without any of it.
Did you make a motion?
just ask if it's
Yeah, I mean, we can do it however you wanna do it, but somebody's gonna make.
I'll make a motion that we separate, the attorney's fees out, separate from all the other amendments, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so your motion is 141 without any increase to the pay for the lawyers?
Yeah, pull it out, and we'll just vote on it separately.
Well, your motion would be for all budget amendments except for the.
Yeah.
Yes. 141, 42, and 43 all combined together.
Oh, well, that's not what I heard, so great, I like that idea. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion? Please do a roll call.
Mr. Newman?
No.
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Mr. Moffett?
No.
Mr. Riding?
Yes.
Mr. Cusick?
Yes.
Ms. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carried. So now we have everything except
The lawyers' fees.
The lawyers.
I have to view myself.
So here we are with lawyers' fees.
Make a motion that we pay whatever's due,
The 61.
but we need to move over, not move anything else over.
We have a motion on the floor for
Was it
60.
So the current or known bills from the attorneys amount to approximately how much, Dr. Vance?
I believe they amount to at least $60,000 a week or two ago. I don't know what the total amount is at this point in time. The board needs to take into consideration that every time the board calls the attorney, emails the attorney, texts the attorney, that's a fee. And we'll obviously have situations where we'll have people that will press litigation and ask to bring attorneys with them to meetings, and so when they bring attorneys to meetings, we want to bring our attorney to the meeting as well, make sure that we're legally in a good position. So I would encourage the board at minimum to consider at least, because I don't know that we've got the March final bill from Lewis Thompson, so that will probably make that number be greater than 60, maybe closer to 70. I would encourage the board to consider at least $75,000, $80,000.
Well, we can try to be more careful in the future as to how we use the attorneys, and if we can avoid using them, do that, but that's not gonna change the bills that are already there.
Correct.
So I think we need to approve enough money to cover the bills that are there. Here we are in the middle of April. We know we got 2.5 months of the fiscal year left. You wanna come back every time we get an attorney's bill and modify the budget again, or you wanna put enough in there to cover anything that's gonna happen between now and 1st of July?
I'd say we modify it to where we come back, because that way we keep a handle on it.
Okay.
We can't go out here meeting with them like
And
this.
I think to reiterate what Scotty's saying is that I think it's important that every time that we receive an invoice from the attorney, that the board has a copy of that to review before we pay it.
Good idea, I like it.
Because that will cost us a fee.
Did you all seriously not have that before?
Copies?
No.
The board reviews it all?
The board doesn't get to see the lawyer bills until now,
We can
right?
if we like.
Y'all try to stop.
We don't look at any of
I
this
thought I
detail.
gave you a copy of it.
I was gonna say, until this mess right here, y'all never saw.
I was reading like I gave you a copy of it.
Okay, we have, do we have a motion on the floor?
The motion.
Well, hang on, before we do a motion, so,
We don't have any discussion right now, so we either have to make a motion before we do a discussion. So we have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Well, the motion on the floor is what?
61,000 or 60.
It was, I think from what I'm hearing and seeing, it's around 62 would cover it.
I'm saying I'm not exactly sure what the number is. I'm telling you, it was 60. Mr. Chairman, I'll pursue whenever you're ready.
It sounds like we probably ought to put 70,000 in there just to make sure we got the bills covered.
Well, and before that motion is made, that's why I wanted to ask this question. How much money do we have that's unencumbered that's in that line right now?
We owe at least $60,000 is what I'm telling you, minimum.
But how much do we have that's unencumbered right now that we have to spend before we add additional funds to it?
In that line?
I'm telling you, we don't have any funds in that line.
We're at zero right now.
We're at negative $60,000 plus.
Was there a motion for 70,000?
The three invoices alone were
I'll make a motion for $70,000.
We have a motion on the floor for 70,000.
Hey, she's saying so.
Okay.
53 what?
Doesn't work that way.
The three invoices alone were $53,078.80 for the three invoices.
Plus, there was one that was $5,600 that come in at our last meeting. That put it right at about 60.
We'll simply put it in the line. If we don't spend it all, it goes back into fund balance, so it shouldn't matter.
But on the other hand, we could pay them 60,000 and owe them for another month and then pay as they come in. I think it's kind of fun. It's good. I have no problem with that.
With us getting copies.
I'm sorry?
With us getting copies.
No problem with that. I mean, I'm like all the rest of you. I haven't seen copies.
My motion was for 70.
Do I hear a second on 70? We have a motion and a second. Add 70. Any more discussion? Ms. Kayla, would you roll call, please?
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Riding?
No.
Mr. Cusick?
Yes.
Mr. Bridges?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No,
Mr. Newman?
No.
Motion failed.
I think we gotta pay the bills that are here. So, and I agree, if they hadn't I saw the invoices. I've seen them. If you hadn't saw them, then I understand that. But I know without a doubt from the bills that I've seen, that 61 ought to cover it. So I make a motion at 61,000.
A motion is 61. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Salmon?
Aye.
Mr. Moffett? Mr. Riding?
Yes.
Mr. Cusick?
Yes.
Ms. Bridges?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Motion passed. Textbook adoption, Mr. Dricker.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Education, I would encourage you guys to approve the textbook adoption as was presented last week at the board workshop.
Before we move forward, did we vote on the other amendments?
Yeah, remember that was the, I don't think we did.
You said all three, 1, 2, and 3.
We'd vote on that first.
Johnson told me that he had.
Anybody reading that?
Textbook adoption.
Was it full of communist type
Do I hear a motion?
Jason, recommendation?
Yes, sir, I recommend you approve the list as presented last week at the workshop.
This was the list from the state, correct?
The list from the state that the textbook committee comprised of teachers and administrators agreed on. Yes, sir.
And then ultimately, we select from that front court list.
That's correct.
That will be
We have a motion on the floor. Do we hear a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion on those textbooks? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Ms. Kayla, would you please roll call?
Mr. Moffett? Mr. Riding?
Aye.
Mr. Cusick?
Aye.
Ms. Bridges?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Salmon?
Yes. Motion carried. Number 10, any other business deemed necessary by the board of directors? Or by the board or the director?
I have some lengthy stuff, but I'll go last. No, go ahead, let somebody else go forward. Sorry.
I have some, well, I went back through, my apologies to gave the minutes last week. I'm just not that good at reading them real fast. So I sat down and read them since Thursday, and one of the pieces that stood out again to me was on March 5th, the meeting. It's on the very first page, and when it talks about an unidentified female, and whenever there was a discussion, and when it goes over to the second page, it says that Mr. Giordano responds to her question stating the initial investigation included the email from December 10th, 2018, letters that were received, some anonymous, suggestions for people to be interviewed, emails from the board, etc. Those letters that I handed to him, probably over 30, those were not used in that investigation. So I would like for that to show that. He may have used letters that were in reference to that situation, but the letters in which I gave to him were not used.
But that was the second phase of the potential investigation?
Well, I think this was his first one, whenever he came and had the report ready. So those letters were not.
It had to be, if it was March 6th or whatever.
Yeah. So I just want, it says that that's in there, but those are used.
Do we need the motion to rescind those minutes?
Just ask her to modify the amendment, or add that item
Would you,
to.
please add it up.
She can do that.
That's what we agree, I'm not familiar with since we voted to pass them at all, so. But I agree. Scotty, it's all you.
Okay. I've got a bunch of, or several TCA codes and some policies that I've been looking at because I've had people bring these to my attention. And so if you want to write these things down, because I'd like for all the boards to look at all these and get the correct, because I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So I'm going to write down these codes. The first one I want to talk about is Tennessee Code 39-16-402, and it's called official misconduct. First three sentences of that code states a public servant commits an offense with the intent to obtain a benefit or to harm another individual, intentionally or knowingly. Commits an act relating to the servant's office or employment that constitutes an unauthorized exercise of official power. Commits an under, color, or office or employment that exceeds the servant's official power. Now this goes on, and there's several, that's why I want y'all to write these down so you guys can look at these too. So, because I don't know how much conversation you guys are having with the public, but these are things that have been brought to my attention, and that's why I'm looking into it. And I'll get to where I'm going at the end of this. So that's your first TCA code. And then I go over to our code.
Code again?
39-16-402. And I'll go back to another code here in a minute. But, anyway, our policy, we got a code of ethics. I think it's policy number, is it 1.106? Okay. And this is something that this board needs to do. The school district may create a school district ethics committee. The ethics committee consists of 3 members who will be appointed for 1-year term by the chairman of the Board of Education with confirmation by the Board of Education. At least 2 of the members of this shall be members of the Board of Education. The ethics committee shall convene as soon as practical after its appointment and elect a chair and secretary, so on. So it goes on that. We need to look at that. You need to look at that policy right there, because that's something I think we need to do so we can have some checks and balances on down the road. So.
Is that, Scotty, dumb question, is that something that we have to have as a standing committee or at request?
It said a year. You can appoint it to the chairman, and it's good for a year.
Can that not just be the policy committee?
It can be whatever. But
do I need to tell Gary to put that on his agenda for 5
It
days?
wouldn't be the policy. You would have to appoint it, and it would have to be, just read this right here when you get a chance, and then, and I think you add other than,
You have copies of those things for us?
no, you can get them on the internet.
You can certainly.
I'll give you a fee for a fee.
So it is basically.
That's why I want you to write these down.
It is on request.
Right. It's a, when you
But I have
have,
to.
you have to quit, and the board has it, just like any other committee. And you can appoint, outside members to that committee, so. Okay. Now, My next one is a suspension, expulsion, and reprimand for, and that's 6.316. Of course, that goes back to, you know, there are a lot of reasons for its suspension, expulsion, and you know, immoral or disreputable conduct, including vulgar, profane language, willful or malice damage to real or personal property of the schools, or the property of any person attending or assigned to the school, assaulting the principal, teacher, school bus driver, or other school personnel with vulgar, obscene, threatening language. So there's one right there that we need to write that down. I want y'all to look into that, because we need to make sure these, reason I'm bringing these up, because I want to make sure that these policies are being implemented the way, across the board, the way that it should be. If at the time of the suspension, the principal determines an offense has been committed, which is in the judgment of the principal, would justify suspension, expulsion for more than 10 days, he or she may suspend, expel, reprimand the student unconditionally for a special period of time. Such terms and conditions are deemed reasonable. So
That's the principal.
that's the principal can do that, yes. That's what they're supposed to be doing. Okay, so, and another one is our discipline procedures. And I'm not gonna read all these, I'm just kinda hitting highlights. It's 6.313. Okay. And then, of course, one of the things that gets hit on that is the discipline procedures, is it talks about, goes on harassment, sexual, racial, ethnic, religious, on examples of what you cannot do, and then it goes on to explain disciplinary procedures down through there, so I'm not gonna go into all that. But I just want y'all, we need to be looking into this. And then, you know, here's another one, is a student shall not be suspended solely because charges are being pending against him or her in a juvenile or other court. That's another big, starts out additional guidelines for that one. And I'm gonna get to why I'm going through all these first. I had to do this to make sure that I don't violate anybody's rights, I don't hurt anybody, I don't get it out there. I was contacted by a parent who has a daughter that has been, there's been an accusation that the daughter is a victim of a sexual battery. Okay, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Happened at the school level. It was and since then there's also been an order of protection issued out against the juvenile that alleged done this to the child. I bring this up to the point that she was concerned because, and I'm gonna read down through here, that she was never contacted by the school till after the sheriff's department had called her. And what I'm getting at is that, so I go to this, and there, and her concern is this day, she says, has there not been any kind of formal discipline that the child that was been accused of such acts is still participating in spring sports. So then I back up to a situation where I was been contacted by a parent who admits his son had done wrong. Evidently, he was charged with underage consumption, taking the juvenile shelter at a ball game, and was suspended for a couple of weeks, and now he's in alternative school. And that child has not been able to play any spring sports. Okay, so he's been suspended. So, and I go back to another situation where earlier on we had some harassment. The kid was suspended from a ball game, in 2 weeks of in-school suspension, some other things. There was an investigation by the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department deemed that there was no need to go forward with anything else. If it wasn't an assault, it was simply a horse playing situation. So we got a wide spectrum of how we're disciplining these kids.
Don't we have a disciplinary board that reviews those issues?
Who is that? Who is that?
Not our school board, but.
So I wanna throw that out there, we're not gonna we're gonna talk indeed, I was gonna put that out there, that we gotta make sure that we're doing these things across the board.
You want the policy committee to visit these as soon as
Well,
possible.
hold on. So anyway, TCA code 49-6-4301, school officials who report students' offenses. Every principal,
496-4301.
4301. Every principal having direct knowledge of an assault or battery or vandalism, endangering life, health, or safety committed by a student or school property, or receiving a report of such action shall report the action immediately to the municipal or metropolitan police department or sheriff's department having jurisdiction. Not a fight that involved, not any fight not involving the use of a weapon as defined by 39-17-1301, or any fight that results in a serious personal injury of the parties involved shall be reported only to the school administrator. So if we have a simple fight, kids don't hurt each other, the school administrator takes care of it. SRO don't bother, okay? So, I wanna put that out there, because I don't think this is happening when we have these issues. I think sometimes we're skirting around the SRO. I'll be done in a minute. Here's another one, I'm not gonna read anything off of it, it's 37-1-403 that you need to look at. That reference to reporting of brutality, abuse, neglect, or child sexual abuse, notifications to parents of abuse on school grounds or under school supervision. Here's the next one I wanted to kind of hit on is our another one you need to look at too that also explains the powers and the responsibilities of our director of schools, and this is TCA code 49-2-301. And basically it goes across the whole, what's going on, what they're supposed to do and not supposed to do. Let's see here. And so just look that up.
What's the date on that policy?
This is a code.
What's the date on it? It's when it was written.
It don't say when it was updated. I'm not sure when it was written.
93?
Nah, I don't know where you see 93 at.
Well, most of those laws, codes,
Yeah.
the directors were passed in that massive change in 93, when they changed from the superintendent to the director.
Yeah. One of the points that I want to put out the director of schools, and it's paragraph A, subtitle F. It says, make such recommendations to the board as the director deems for the best interest of the public schools, but in no case shall the director have a vote on any questions coming before the board. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to when my discussion, or I was upset about the changing of our video policy last week. I think that he changed the policy without the board's knowledge.
Which policy?
Do we have a policy on it?
Well, let me back up. You changed the process. You changed the process.
Not the policy.
No, but like I argued before, practice makes policy. And you change the practice without this board's knowledge, or unless, did anybody know those videos have been shut off? Let's see here. That's all I have on that. This is something for us that we need to look into and do. It's 49-6-4503. Each school district shall adopt a policy prohibiting harassment, intimidation, bullying, or cyberbullying. School districts are encouraged to develop the policy after consulting with parents and guardians, school employees, volunteers, students, administration, and community representatives. one, and
Scott,
That's
Scott,
it.
can I ask a question?
yeah,
I really would like the policy committee to meet on this the next week,
well,
to go over this.
this is something I think that the whole board.
Well, we can, but I mean, you know, we,
Now, here's another thing that we're not doing this. This is, like I said, this is PCA code 49-6. I'll be done in just a second. 4503.
Everybody just trying to keep up with your numbers.
You got that number?
4903 or 4503?
4503, I'm sorry.
We already looked at that one.
No, I've not looked at this one.
We had 4301.
I got that one.
Y'all can look in this book if you want to.
This is 49-6-4503, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's the one that I just read about the policy prohibiting harassment and stuff, okay. The principal or the principal's designee shall immediately inform the parent or legal guardian of a student involved in the act of harassment, intimidation, bullying, cyberbullying. The principal or the principal's designee or designee shall inform the parents or legal guardian of the students of the availability of counseling and support service that may be necessary. Now, this is something I didn't know they had to do, but we need to be following up on this. Following an investigation required by this part, the principal or certain principal's designee shall report the finding along with the disciplinary action taken to the director of schools and to the chair of the local board of education. Gee. So, what I'm saying is,
Why didn't you enforce these policies, Scotty?
that's what I'm getting down there. We're going to.
You're the chairman, sir.
He used to be.
We didn't have this issue.
It's your turn next, right?
But anyway,
No, seriously,
back to that is, and then I think this right here, you know, we had a lady stand up in concern about her daughter the other day. And I think this right here, if we're getting a report to the Board of Education and the chairman, you can sit here and, you know, I mean, you gotta redact the information, but you can say, hey, there was this that happened at school, they took this action, this action, and then the school board knows what's going on. Okay, so that's one thing. Let's see here, I think I got covered. Okay, I initially was going to make a motion tonight, but like Pat Hunter stated, we did not put the director's contract on the agenda today. I know that I think a board member may have asked me to take that off, but you know, usually this time we do this. We keep talking about litigation and privacy. And in my opinion, that the only way that we'll get to the bottom of a lot of these rumors that have gone on is that if there is litigation, because everything will come out in court of law.
You gonna pay the attorney's fees?
No, well, I'm just saying. So, anyway, I don't know how legal it would be, but at this time, I think we have cause. You know,
Cause for what?
for termination. And the reason I say that is because we are still in the middle of a corrective action plan, and it just keeps snowballing. And so we need to, as a board, decide what we're gonna do. But we need to sit down and have a special call meeting out, and then we go through all these issues that I brought up, and also go back to look at the correction plan. Unfortunately, you're gonna have an attorney somewhere down the line in all this, but I'm not sure that if we don't step out of that, because just for conflict of interest across the board, we go find another attorney firm.
Amen.
Just for the simple fact, I think that's the way our policy reads and the way the state law reads, that if you're gonna talk about or you're gonna vote on a director's contract, it's actually gotta be on the agenda, and it's also gotta be the first thing on the agenda. So, I fill that information out, that's my opinion, I'm one person, but I think this board owes it to our community to make sure we are above board, and, you know, and here's another thing, when it all comes out in the wash, if Jason is, innocent, we stand behind him.
Amen.
Sounds like you've already committed.
No? That's all I got.
Any other business deemed necessary by the board?
Move adjourned.
A motion to adjourn, second?
Second.
We're dismissed.
Scan it.
Showing everybody. Well, they're hitting the text. I could not stand him. And now he's even at the workshop meeting, somebody said hello and all that.
Grab the shit.
Never get me down right. But also,
Kill me. Oh, that's right. Okay, you're smarter than I am. Hey, this is.
Yeah, he's been in the hospital for weeks.
Just say hello.
Yeah.
How you doing?